Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April 2025 edition of Product Talk. Really excited to have you all here. We've got special guest Josh in the room. Obviously, my co-host Steph. It's been a while since we've both been on the podcast, so the dynamic duo. I don't think anyone calls us that, but I'll start calling us that. The dynamic duo is back of podcast hosting. Um, we got a lot of good stuff in store today. We're going to be talking about a couple of the recent releases that we've had. We're also going to be diving deep into the thought and the expertise that goes on behind the scenes of the Automox user interface and how we think about designing that to be, a multiple award-winning ease of adoption, ease of use from G2 Capterra, Trust Radius, all those review platforms. So going to be a great conversation. Josh, welcome. Josh, why don't you give the audience a quick overview of who you are and what you do at Automox?
Great. Yep, I'm Josh. I work as a senior UX developer, primarily on the Automox design system. So what that entails is building out like a library of components, both for designers and for developers, so that we can build a performant and well-designed user interface for Automox.
Yeah, so Josh, his job is pretty important, pretty much, unless you're doing all your Automox stuff out of the terminal or something. Most of the stuff that you're clicking, looking at, anything like that, Josh has probably had a hand in. So it's going to be a great conversation today. Before we dive into that conversation around the design system, I want to talk about a couple of things that we've announced over the last month or so. Two really big releases for our customers and for prospects as well. That y'all should be aware of. Obviously, there's a ton of info online on our website as well if you want to go check it out there. But just want to talk about that really quick. Steph's had her hand in at least one of these, so should have some great context there. First of which is Automox Analytics. So for those of you not aware, Analytics is our new reporting engine. Should be available for everybody. At the time of this release, it probably has been for a few weeks at the time of this podcast release as well. We're adding a ton of new reporting capabilities to the platform with analytics. Probably the biggest one for MSPs in particular is the ability to report across organizations, which is huge. I think the other pieces for all customers is being able to report on the impact that Automox is having across your environment, and also being able to see what your current vulnerability and patch exposure workload looks like. So one of the big things that we have been asked a lot about is, when are we going to add visibility into CISA's known exploited vulnerabilities catalog? That's in analytics now. The other huge thing that I think is awesome is adding MTTR, so the mean time to remediate. Benchmarking yourself to see how quickly your organization is patching stuff, right? And seeing how quickly you're able to remediate those vulnerabilities from Patch Tuesday or just out of band stuff as well. That's huge. Obviously, if you're an IT administrator, being able to show that to your leadership team, to executives, is massive to demonstrate all the work that you're doing behind the scenes. Those are probably the two things I'm most excited for. There's a ton of other analytics data as well around, the trends over time in all those metrics and your exposure trends over time with CVEs, as well as the severity of those CVEs. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this release. And if you're listening to this now, it's live now. So check it out in your Automox console. It's under Insights, and Analytics is the menu to get there. So check it out. Steph, anything you want to add there? Hopefully I did an okay job.
Yeah, I think you did a good job. I think, with that initial release, what customers are really gonna be able to do is, like, prove all the good stuff that they've been doing. How has what you've been doing with Automox translated into a more secure environment? Um, and they can prove it without having to do any extra work. So I think that part is pretty cool.
Yeah, we have a lot more on the docket here in the coming weeks, months, quarters. Give us your feedback as you try it out. We're keeping an eye on all of that, of course, as always. But expect to see quite a few more updates there from us coming up. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter already, Automox Now, or our monthly newsletter, definitely make sure you're getting those because we'll talk about the updates there as well. The other big thing that has been much requested is a new end user notification system for Windows and Mac. This is also now generally available as of April, so you should already see this in your environments for most folks, unless you've opted out or something. But internally we call the end user Sally as just a representative, but as the people that you serve, whether you're an MSP using Automox or an IT team, right, your end user, right, you are asking them sometimes to take action to make sure that patches take effect, right? A lot of the Windows patches, especially, as well as Mac, those operating system patches require reboots in order for that patch to actually take effect. So just patching, just installing the update is often not enough to reduce your risk and like mitigate the vulnerabilities that were fixed in a patch. You also have to reboot the device to fully protect it. So sending those notifications down to users, having that trusted, modern, and familiar tray icon available for end users when they have to reboot to ensure a patch can take effect is really important. That's something we've taken. I don't know how many customer calls you've probably taken around this stuff, but
Oh.
it's it's a great step for us. We have a lot of cool stuff planned there as well for the rest of the year. So we're really excited to get this one in the hands of you all, the customer. But we're even more excited to keep innovating here. And Steph was actually one of the people that helped to lead this project. So I'm sure I didn't do it justice in your eyes. But let me know what else you'd like to add there.
Yeah, I think one of the important things is like the introduction of the deadline, and making sure that the Sallys of the world know when they need to perform whatever action it is, whether it's an install or a reboot, and giving them more flexibility to accomplish, those actions. And you kind of said that this really is like the beginning of it, right? It's our first step at saying, here's a brand new way to interact with your end users. You're going to be able to brand the tray yourself in future releases. We've heard a lot of like, hey, our users want to know that it's coming for us. Users are getting more sensitive to like, is this a legit notification? And so we're going to start addressing things like that by allowing you to add your branding, customize text, show what's being actually installed. I think like the end user is evolving to be more tech savvy. And as that happens, how we notify them and the level of information we tell them needs to evolve along with that. And the tray allows us to do that. Um, so it's going to be good. It's going to get even better. And yeah, we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. So let's talk about the topic of the day now. All this stuff, the commonality between it is everything that we just talked about is visible, right? You can see it, you interact with it. I'm sure that Josh had some level of involvement in a lot of this stuff, but even at a higher level than that, we have, a system, of design that we use to make sure that the platform performs how it should. It's intuitive and it's modern
Mhm.
and familiar, right? So, Josh, thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to the discussion. If you could just kick us off for those who aren't familiar, I know you already did a really quick overview, but tell us a little bit more about like what a design system is, why it exists, and what the benefit is to the people listening, the people that are using the tool every day.
Yeah, great question. So, a design system at its core is, like I mentioned earlier, a library of components both for designers and developers. And there's a lot of benefits to why you would have a design system. One of the biggest benefits is that when you put in the work for something like a component, so maybe a button's a really great example because it's a really simple component, and it's one of the first ones you kind of build out when you're building out a design system because it plays into all these other components. But when you put in all this work to create something that has a high level of quality, that's accessible, that's has all the features that we might need for the future, for designers and for developers, you are going to allow that quality to kind of be replicated throughout the whole console. So everywhere that button's used, because we're using a componentized system, you get all that quality and all that benefit. So it's felt everywhere as we kind of build out these components, and they're used throughout the console. It also makes the time from design to delivery a lot faster. So designers get to use these common components. They don't have to rebuild, a button or rethink the parameters of the button every time they do a design. And it's the same for developers. Like a developer wouldn't have to rebuild an accordion every time they build out, need an accordion or something that expands and collapses. And the designers and the developers are speaking the same language. So there's less friction from handoff, especially when the whole suite is essentially built with a common language. So our designers use a component with that might say dismissible is an option, and the developers will have that same component and they'll have that same option. And they'll be able to just toggle it on and off. And so it allows developers and designers to kind of tackle bigger problems. They don't have to solve these simple or seemingly simple problems over and over again. They can put their energy and time into bigger solutions. Designers, whether it's like how the user flows through the page, thinking about the best experience, the developers have all kinds of considerations that are specific to them that they can think about more. They can spend their time there instead of having to think about these kind of issues that can be solved once really well and then used throughout the system.
Josh, have you ever worked somewhere that didn't have a design system?
I did. I have a long time ago. So I've been working in design systems for about 7 years. But before that, I did work somewhere without a design system, and it was kind of the Wild West. So
Yeah.
you see this in some applications that you might use online where a button looks one way in one place and totally different and functions totally differently depending on where you are in the site, or sites will have completely different looks from one portal to another. Um, and it can really like tear down customer confidence because you're just not sure, like, wait, where am I? Like, this doesn't feel right. And so a lot of a design system, the benefit to the customer is it feels right. They understand how the components are supposed to be used because they've used them throughout the console. So you introduce a new feature and they intuitively understand how to use the different parts of it, right?
Yeah, I think that's important. That's one of the things that we get all the time is kind of like what we're doing well, and that's ease of use. And a lot of that is due to we put a lot of work into it, and it shows. People are trying to use it, and like you said, we're introducing new features.
And one of the great things about the design system is that it's a collaborative product. So it's not just me doing the whole thing. You know what I mean? Although I do have a lot of expertise, I am not as smart or as competent as the entire company, right? And so we have an entire front end development team, we have a UX team, and they are able to come together in a collaborative way to kind of build this thing that's bigger than all of us, which is really great. And I think, can be felt throughout the application.
Yeah, for sure. We're working on upgrading it now, and, as, like, you've been and the rest of the team delivering these new components,
Hmm.
even post, like, internally, "Hey, this is the thing that's been updated." People
Yeah.
are excited about it, and they notice the difference.
Yeah, totally. The new design, it's a lot of fun. We're moving from a lot of kind of old components, old component architecture to new components, new architecture. And visually, it's a lot more compelling. It's a little bit more colorful, more interesting, easier to use. But technically, it's a lot more robust as well, which I think people are really going to be able to feel as they start to use these new components.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that because I think the question that a lot of folks, if folks are listening who are current Automox users, are like, oh my gosh, like, do I have to learn something new, or like what do I expect, right?
Yeah, they should feel the same. If we're doing our job well, they should feel the same, maybe a little bit better. They should jive with each other visually. Um, there's going to be, because we're a fast company, we're delivering features quickly. We're kind of doing this continual integration system where our features are going out. We're doing the same thing with the design system. So we're migrating slowly in a sense, in that we're not changing everything all at once. But what that means is that users actually get things more quickly. So you start to see some of these things like the buttons and the alerts and breadcrumbs, some of these smaller integral components that are used a lot of places have rolled out now. But using them is going to be pretty much the same. Just visually and as far as the user experience, it's going to be a little bit nicer, a little bit tighter. Um, from a technical standpoint, we're doing a lot. Some of the things that might be interesting to customers is that, we're improving our accessibility. So that was, something we kind of realized was we really could improve the accessibility of the application. And one of the primary ways we can do that is through the design system, because we fixed one thing in the design system, and all of a sudden we fixed 1,000 issues throughout the console. So that's a big thing, and that's going to be really impactful for a lot of users. Um, we're also improving some of the parity between the design and the development. And what that means is, like, where before there was a little bit of flexibility where, stuff might be one way in a design and then kind of come into development and be slightly different just because of, some of the natural consequences of the old system. It'll be a little bit tighter. And what that means is our customers are going to be a little bit more comfortable. Things aren't going to feel a little awkward as they use it. It's just going to be a little bit of a tighter experience.
That's great. I think that's been something we've really emphasized, I think, the last couple of years here is let's double down on what we're good at. And one of the biggest strengths of the platform, in my opinion, and my opinion is from, kind of a marketing angle and how people view our product outside of the company, right? One of the big things is it being intuitive. I think that's critical for us. And I love that we're doubling down on it. I love that we're not just kind of sitting in on our hands there and being happy with where we're at, but we're continuing to improve. So I think if you're on Automox today, you could probably look forward to a lot more improvements and having an even more usable tool than the one that you started with the day prior, and getting that stuff, you know, much quicker than you would on a you know perpetual license or an older tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually reminds me of one last benefit to the user is in updating the design system, we're removing a lot of bloat. So, the way our old system kind of functioned, just caused us to have kind of like excess code. And so one of the new updates that we're doing is kind of stripping a lot of that down, and it's going to make things much more performant. So, we're removing a lot of this bloat of unused code and just pieces that we had, but we probably didn't need. So should speed things up a little bit. Maybe not noticeably because we're talking, microseconds, but perhaps.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Steph, any other questions?
I don't think so. Josh did a really good job of explaining, like, why should you care, right? Because when you're like, "Oh, we updated the button," sounds like nothing on its face, but when you realize everything that goes into that and all the downstream impacts it has, um, overall, like you said, it's gonna help with use of the product, the performance of the product, all things that our customers very much care about. Um, and so, yeah, it's it's a good time seeing those things roll out, and improve those parts of the product.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, right, Josh, is like this is going to be, like you said, an iterative process. Probably, I believe it's potentially over years, right?
Yeah. Well, just depending on time frames and feature
Yeah,
rollout, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
It could take a while.
There's a lot. There's a lot of buttons. I mean, I've already noticed a lot of improvements, but I think
Yeah.
for those listening, like you have a lot more to look forward to, and you'll continue to see things improve and become more and more usable over the next few quarters and potentially even years. So a lot of stuff to look forward to. I think that's where we're going to leave it for this month. A lot of great stuff we talked about, from the new release of our reporting module, Automox Analytics, to a brand new end user notification system in the tray, and all the way into all the design improvements and thought that goes behind making Automox the easiest to use and quickest to learn tool out there today. So thanks everybody for joining us. We'll talk to you all next month. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Steph.
Bye, guys.